What's up, Zach here, and today I've got, at least in the outsole, what's got to be one of the most durable shoes I have ever come across. Let's get into them. Now, the shoe I'm talking about is the Xenon Xtreme. You may have heard the name Xenon, as I do have a collab sandal with them, the Xenon Zen. I am a profit participant in the sandal. However, I have absolutely zero financial gain with these shoes. There's not even an affiliate link down below. It's just a standard old link. So this video is by no means sponsored. All opinions about these, good, bad, and indifferent, are all my own. They did send me a pair of these to check out, obviously, but like I said, not sponsored. And yeah, there's just so much about these that is just so different, because these are first and foremost platform tennis shoes. Remember, platform tennis is played on just about the most ridiculous surface you could come up with, right, for a court sport. It is basically just meant to rip through shoes. All of the patients that I have, they're platform tennis players. We actually have a really big platform tennis club right down the road, so I get a lot of those people in. And basically all those people do is they take their old tennis shoes and then they go there and beat them up. And like, that's kind of like their final resting place, because they just never want to buy new shoes for the sport. Now, Xenon, being a paddle tennis company, wanted to come up with a shoe that could withstand the rigors of the actual specific paddle court, but also make it so that all court sport athletes could use them, both tennis, pickleball, as well as outdoor basketball. Before we get into the ridiculousness that is the outsole tread, let's start off in the uppers. Now, number one, the best part about these uppers to me is the tongue. It has 3 layers of foam, like a really thick central pad of foam. One of the more luxurious tongues I've ever seen in a shoe. I know we talk about tongue construction a lot in these videos, but this one and the Joker 1, I think, really take the cake. The gusset on it is super high, so it does give a really nice lockdown. It almost gives like a hybrid 3-piece, slipper tongue type feel. You do get a runner's knot in these things that does go pretty far back. And so lockdown on these, honestly, if you use the runner's knot, it's none to mild. If you don't use the runner's knot, it's like a generous mild. Once the shoe breaks in though more, it slips down. The padding around the ankle collar, as you can see, that the heel counter is pretty high. The ankle collar swoops down, but you do get a lot of padding right around the runner's knot, the most proximal eyelet. So it really does, just use that runner's knot, it really cinches that padding right around you. I wish more companies would make that padding go further up like these do, because it really does kind of lock you in right from more the anterior ankle, so you don't have to rely on the rear foot as much, which is really nice. Now, as you go into the forefoot, you can see you do get some honeycombing, as well as on the lateral foot, you get honeycombing there. And if you look at this thing on the breathability test, this was probably the most impressive thing. Only heated up 104.4 degrees. Look at the breathability mapping of them. It kind of shows you fog is just pouring out of the forefoot. It doesn't come out the sides as much because you got the gusset of the tongue. It's not as breathable as the forefoot, but a lot of places for heat and moisture egress, because the rest of the upper is a paneled TPU. Now, this shoe is getting a V2, which is going to be paneled KPU on the outside. Now, KPU stands for kinetic polyurethane. It's a little bit more weather resistant. You can just do a little bit more with it. It's just easier to sculpt. It's easier to make kind of flow around, a little bit more ideal for the upper of a shoe. Maybe a little bit more durable, like I said, while being a little bit more weather resistant, while also maintaining the flexibility of TPU. The V2 of this shoe, which will come out in August, heated up 102.1 degrees. So yeah, that KPU, a little bit of a step up, especially if you're in really extreme temperatures like platform tennis is played in. It's usually played in pretty cold weather. For outdoor basketball, tennis, pickleball, the TPU or KPU is going to do a pretty decent job. Now, look at this thing on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. And yeah, the burr actually does work. The drag guard, that drag guard's pretty thick. The thing is the medial flange here in the forefoot of rubber comes up so far over the uppers that if you find yourself dragging or sliding on this, I don't know how you do it, right? You have to have like the most craziest hallux varus that points the shoe in. I mean, I can't see that many people actually working this drag guard because of how wide the medial flange is on the inside of the shoe. Now, the V2 of these does not have as wide of a medial flange, but it does still have that big pop of rubber here, and it's got a thicker drag guard. So really depends. Do you want more of the medial phalange in the V1, or do you want a little bit more of the low profile nature of the V2? They both have really good drag protection. It's just kind of the flavor of drag protection. All right, beginning into the midsole teardown, there's actually some pretty weird, wild stuff in here. there. Now, number one, the shank on these things actually goes all the way around the heel counter and then dives through to create a bottom loaded shank. So the external heel counter plus the shank kind of all work together. So it makes the shoe so darn stable. You'll see that in the fit section with the resting position versus the loading position. Now, as you go into the actual midsole, it's an entire bed of supercritical nitrogen infused TPE. So you're actually pretty low to the ground in terms of the midsole. That's why these things have such good proprioception for how durable the rubber is. But at the same time, you never feel like your feet are pummeling through the ground. That's what's so nice about the supercritical nature of this foam. It's a very similar feeling to Lacoste AGLT or Agility 23 Ultra, where yeah, it's low to the ground, but the foam composition is so resilient that you don't feel like you're actually pummeling through the ground. It's a really nice design tweak there. Now, what Xenon did with this one that, I mean, I've seen variations of this, but I've never seen this exact variation. They actually put a denser paneled piece of Strobel board that they stitched in to the forefoot to make it a little bit more stable in the forefoot for more hard cut side to side. That allowed them to get a little bit lower to the ground in the forefoot without having to put like any really hard plastic pieces in there. Which it's interesting, right? And it bends really nice like an accordion. You know, you get some really good transition. As you can see, like I said in a lot of my videos, it doesn't have to be a crazy piece of technology for it to work really well. You look at this thing on the bounce height test, got 32 centimeters in the rear foot and then 30 in the forefoot. I kind of expected less in the forefoot because that paneling there, it's a little bit more deadened, right? It's gonna deaden some of that supercritical TPE. And I've seen that a lot with supercritical foams recently, where they're more prioritizing the shock absorption of them. Because in platform tennis, obviously, you're not launching off the ground all the time. But the thing is, with the external heel counter running into the shank, you still do get a ton of snap in these things from the shank, but it's mostly the shank doing the work in terms of launch. The foam is there basically to give you a low to the ground feel while maintaining shock absorption. All right, but getting into the big kahuna, the outsole tread, I should know something about this because I actually helped design this. This was part of the shoe that I helped work on with Noah, who's the CEO of Xenon Paddle. We had a lot of fun messing around with this outsole tread. Now, this is a variable depth outsole tread, which means the forefoot is 4.5 millimeters. The rear foot around the periphery of that rear foot is 3.5 millimeters. And then the middle of the shoe is a 3 millimeter tread depth. Now that's tread depth, not rubber thickness. The rubber thickness is actually more than that. Now, basically what this is broken up delta patterns going in the forefoot, and you have like a pretty gentle herringbone going all the way around it, but it's kind of like a radial herringbone. So it's giving you kind of side to side stopping power, right? Because it's perpendicular to plane of motion. And then in the middle, you're more parallel to your plane of motion, so you can slide, you can grab. It's a little bit of a kind of an all-around type tread. The rear foot basically slopes down in terms of tread depth to give you a little bit easier push off while also maintaining durability. And look at these things in the grip test ramp, they don't slip till 38 degrees. So actually a little bit, you know, more grabby than some of the other rubbers out there, which, you know, a lot of tennis shoes hover around 36 degrees on that. Now remember, these do have micro gridding, right? So each line of tread is stamped with a micro grid. So you are getting that micro and macro traction. That broken up delta just gives a lot of opportunities for grip, but it is so thick, you can still slide on them. Now these things on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper and shocker, it basically just cleans off the micro gridding of these. And the durometer is only 16.75 on these. And the reason why they can get away with a softer rubber, maybe a little bit more, you know, tactile feeling rubber, a little more proprioceptive rubber, and not just a super hard ice skate, is because they're using a rubber similar to some of the basketball companies like Li Ning and Way of Wade, where you see those rubbers out there in Anta, where they're just ridiculously thin, right? But they still maintain some durability. I think these things on the speed ratio, they come in at a 2.02, shank score of 0.2, bumps it up to a 2.22. I think that's kind of where the V1 belongs. The V2 is definitely a speedier shoe just because it doesn't have the medial flange. Both of them have ridiculous stopping power. The V1 because the flange is so long, and then the V2 because the flange is so reinforced and so sharp. Like they kind of changed the flange on the second one versus the first. And so with the rear foot shank kind of all being integrated around the entire heel counter. So really the main focus in these is very nimble, quick stopping power. Now, of course, with the shank and those things, it does make a perfect tennis shoe and pickleball shoe, but I do find it interesting how that speed ratio kind of does match kind of what it's meant for in platform tennis. All right, but by far my favorite part of the Extremes is their fit. Now, number one, these things only have an 8-degree in flare. It looks like there's more of an in flare because the lateral flange is so generous, because you get a little bit of a medial flange. Now, the resting position of these is only 1 degree everted, and then once you load them, it's still 1 degree everted. And that's usually what happens when you have a nice wide base in the rear foot, as well as an external heel counter that wraps all the way around and goes into the shank. It just stays incredibly stable of a shoe. Now, these things do come in at 29 centimeters in length, so a hair long, 9.6 centimeters metatarsal width, 10.6 centimeters of toe box width, and a toe box taper of only 25 degrees. The V2 looks like it has a larger taper. It's an optical illusion because the flange is so wide and kind of aggressive. So honestly, for these, if you are narrow, you can go down a half size if you want a little more weight reduction. The tongue is so thick, like I said, and the shoe locks down so well, you can go true to size in them if you just want more room. Medium 2, I'd say go true to size. Even a 4E, I think, can go true to size. If you want to go up 1/2 size as a 4E, a little bit more room in there. Like I said, they'll lock down well enough for you, especially if you have a bulky orthotic. The thing is the TPU on the V1 plus all the honeycombing breaks in so well in the uppers. And in the V2, it's even better, right, in terms of the break-in time. So like I said, either one, I think you really can't go wrong in terms of that same fit profile. And in terms of people I'd be recommending these for, and actually there already have been a lot in my practice. Like I said, I see a lot of paddle tennis players and just tennis players in general. Anybody that wants a pretty low to the ground feeling shoe without pummeling through it, right, that actually still has shock absorption, I mean, these are great for people that need a lot of durability from their shoes. You know, someone that wants a lot of lateral stability, right? Ankle sprainers, anybody with a lot of instability can really get benefit from this shoe. Also, people with dorsal foot pain, right? Anything on the top of your foot that is bothering you, super high arch people like myself, this shoe is just a dream for, just because it just insulates the foot so well. Anywhere from tennis, pickle, platform, or outdoor basketball, especially if you're looking for like the most durable outdoor basketball shoe out there, these are fantastic. Plus, it's got the foam to protect you, against some of these really, unforgiving outdoor courts, but you also are getting a little bit more feel than some of the other shoes meant for outdoor courts that are going to be a little more protective, maybe not as proprioceptive. In terms of tennis players looking for these are more in that all-court shoe or a really aggressive baseline grinder type shoe. What I noticed in these is they have the same kind of feel as the Eclipsean line from Yonex, that really nice proprioceptive feel on the bottom. Just like I said, that Yonex rubber science is out of this world. This really mimics that really well. Those two, I'd say the Eclipsean 5 and these, in terms of rubber feel on the court, are just really up there, really good. Coincidentally, the Eclipsean 5 is also a really good platform tennis shoe, is also a really good outdoor basketball shoe. So really in kind of that same category. For pickle, honestly, either one of these are just really phenomenal. Because remember, the shoe's flexible in the forefoot, but it's super solid in the rear foot, so you can make those really quick adjustment steps things. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to see the other Xenon footwear product, the Zen Slide, the one I had quite a bit of design input on, the one that really, reflects a lot of my, design and everything, I'll leave that video linked up above, and make sure you subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.